Welcome to Gray Areas for July 9th, 2024, episode 630. I made sure the audio is working. I heard myself echoing. I don't think the featured chat is working. I'll have to fix that on the fly. There's no Dave. He's gone.
Thank God.
He died.
I'm so sick of Dave's opinions all the time.
Is that why you talk over him?
Cody, you would have been so interested. I pulled all these receipts on Dave last week. I was looking at the best of lists. I wasn't even trying to do that. I just was looking at the best of lists that we've done, and you wouldn't know because you don't listen to the show when you're not on it. But it was a hell of a thing.
You just bullied him.
I tried, but then I got some receipts pulled too. So it was a lot of receipts.
So is that what you were referring to when you were like, I'm going to research the back end of the show and be as difficult as possible and be as mean as possible?
No, well, so I want to research the trivia. And I still need to do that. Actually, I've done it already.
So what you were planning on doing was researching trivia, and then you just got tangented, unsurprisingly for your personality, onto anything else, which was, oh, I'm researching things, and I can make fun of Dave for this.
Kind of, yeah. There were some things Dave said a long time ago, and I was like, yeah.
Like what?
Rehash
the show completely for me.
No, well, what I'll do is as I continue to go back, I did like 2011 and 12, and now the next one I'm going to do is 2014. I'm going to tabulate all what we said was the best stuff.
Okay.
And now, and in doing that, I'm going to discover something stupid Dave said, or multiple things, and I'm going to bring it back.
You're just like freezing cold takesing Dave right now. You're going to go back really far.
Yeah.
When other people might have agreed with him, but you're going to take a bad opinion he had.
Yeah.
That you might have even agreed with, but you're just going to take it out of context and say, well, look at how stupid Dave was for thinking A, B, and C.
Yeah, I'm going to take a cue from cancel culture and just find the old things that Dave said.
You're going to dig through his old tweets.
Bring it back.
See what he said when he was like
Not
17 years old.
His tweets are going to be super boring. I don't care
Listen,
about
you
that.
can dig through his old tweets at 17. Maybe he's some bad shit.
The equivalent of his old tweets is like old show stuff.
Exactly. It's the same premise. Okay.
And that's to get him canceled, just to be like, remember the stupid thing that you said?
And he needs to be reminded.
Yeah.
By you specifically, to keep him in check.
That's what I'm here for. He doesn't agree, but I have played a valuable role in Dave's development.
That's what? A human being?
Yes. Yeah. A comedian, a human being.
And Chris just sat by for last week watching you.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad I was.
Well, it was funny. It was one of those episodes where Chris thought he was gonna be the what? I don't remember what you said, Chris. You knew I was gonna be a crazy person, but you thought you were gonna have a different role, and then it turns out it just became Dave and I fighting constantly, and so you kind of became the straight guy because Dave became whatever Dave became.
Defensive? Maybe that's the word for it.
Yeah, it seemed like in the lead up to this, it would have been Dave hosting and you and me going at each other's throats the most, and that just vanished quickly.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even organic, because I can't even say that because we didn't even know what the hell we were doing, but it became clear very early on that the two of you were going to butt heads all the time, and I was just going to sit here like, okay.
Yeah. Well, because even if we can disagree, and it's fun to debate, but Dave just has so many bad takes that I can't even I cannot even begin.
So the thing is,
kids say.
I'm curious because you said I'm really instrumental in Dave's development.
Yeah.
Yet you went back a decade and are just seeing all these shit takes he has over and over again. So what did you help him develop? Shitty takes?
No, because you see oh man, I see where he was and now I see where he is today, and what a transformation.
Again, 2 months ago you spent 25 minutes opening the show shitting on his life and how he's out of shape. So I just feel like
I didn't say he's out of shape.
I feel like the receipts are here right now and he hasn't improved himself.
I just get annoyed when he's like, oh man, I wish I had time, and I'm trying to be a life coach, as we said. Here's an avenue.
So I feel like the answer is, if you look at a decade worth of results, maybe Sean shouldn't be a life coach as his really wonderful women's empowerment mentality has his wife delivering him his
Look,
fucking
this is
smoothie.
Not my fault.
And
right
I
away.
forgot to make a protein shake.
Yeah, it's not my fault. I was antagonizing my dogs to bark at each other for 15 minutes before the show started. So Sean has started off our topicless show by pointing out that Dave sucks and he helped him get better, except for he hasn't helped him get better.
it's interesting.
He made his dogs fight with each other, so he started dog fights. And then he made one dog slam the other dog into the stairs.
Right.
And then he sent his wife down there to go blend him a smoothie because he wouldn't do it himself and didn't want to miss the start of the show.
And then he said, "Oh, the show is starting. Let's do this thing with Dave." And Dave's not on the show, so that's why there's no topic. There was going to be a topic.
So
yeah. And then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Dave's not here. But I was trying to save it for Dave, so Dave should be flattered.
We'll ask him when he comes back if flattered is the word he would use to describe it.
I really appreciate that comment so fucking much.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like
the Uno reverse card.
The ultimate victim.
Yes.
If anybody was watching, like, oh my god, thank God Sean finally doesn't have a protein shake.
Yes.
And then it was delivered off screen.
It was actually worse.
Come on.
Rather than
I was going to say that.
And just puts it in.
Yep. Just to, you're like, oh, thank God, I don't have to watch him eat 5 minutes in. Nope, it was just a feint.
Not only that, in fact, you're going to watch him eat the whole thing because normally it's about like 60% full.
Yeah.
Now it's overflowing.
It's kind of watery too. She didn't do it very good. Don't tell her, but it's kind of.
It's a good thing she doesn't. It's a good thing she doesn't watch the show and she's not in the house. It's great.
Well, anyways,
in the last 120 seconds, Dave has been thrown under the bus. Maisie has been thrown under the bus. And despite having thrown those two people under the bus, Sean has turned himself into the victim in that process.
Because here's what I would say. Did they not deserve it? If this shake was good, I would have said nothing.
Have you considered running for public office? Because I think the throwing under the bus and playing the victim card
Don't start this.
makes you a real perfect person to just run for office.
Cody, I have. Let me. No, I know. I actually think when I am actually feeling like under pressure and nervous, which I haven't on the show in years, I will like forget like my train of thought. I will do the Biden thing where they first of all, and I'd say something, and I would forget the second of all.
So we need to get you a teleprompter that you read off of at every moment of your life, basically. Okay.
It doesn't seem to hurt Biden, so maybe I am perfect for running for office. Just read off the teleprompter. Doesn't matter if I can't debate or talk or think.
Really like. I've appreciated that Parks and Rec episode more and more, where they're in that scene where he's like they have the robot version of the senator guy, and he just sits there in office not doing anything. He's like, oh yeah, he turns it on when you need him to, and we just feed him the lines. And I'm like, holy shit! The more and more I look back, I'm like, yeah, you know what, you guys were kind of ahead of the times on making fun of that part of politics.
It doesn't work though because Biden can't read off a teleprompter either anymore. The
I
last couple months,
right.
we have multiple clips of him like reading things like pause or say the line again, where they're like, they must be in brackets or something, but he's pulling a Ron Burgundy or whatever.
Yes, he's Ron Burgundy.
Yeah,
then.
so
Okay.
like now he can't even do that anymore. At least they could hide it before, and now he's rambling through things that are not meant to be dialogue. So everything's a lost cause.
Yeah, true. Well, so Cody, you were going to talk about a boring thing.
I'm not going to talk about anything. It said video games. It's not boring. Chris will admit that it's not boring either. He doesn't play sports games obviously as much as I do, but I'm interested in what the sales are going to look like and the money's going to look like next week, because the next week for this EA Sports' NCAA football game is going to kind of set the tone for, or college football, I guess it's not NCAA anymore. It's going to set the tone for a sports video game going forward, and I feel like maybe what EA is going to look at doing going forward. I'm just really curious about what's going to happen here, because the hype online continues to grow more and more, and it looks like it's pretty good. I've seen some of the clips of people playing. I've seen some of the modes of it, and I'm not going to bore you with like the details of Dynasty mode versus like you're the kid, race for the Heisman mode or whatever the fuck they call them. I'm just really curious for the sports video game industry, what this next week's going to look like as pre-sale numbers, probably assuming, start rolling in. We see what the first reactions to this game are as we'll get ahead of it early. And it's important to me because it was a game I played a lot in high school for years. In middle school, elementary school, years and years, because the college football game was always the best game. It was better than Madden. Madden got more and more popular in the recent years because they stopped playing NCAAs. There was only one football game that EA was not, they weren't competing against themselves. They chose to compete against themselves again. So I'm like, what do Madden's numbers look like? Do they fall because everyone hates the game and it's terrible? I mean, people who watch this channel watched us play it twice and saw how broken it was over and over again, versus how not broken is EA Sports' college football game because they had to redo the entire engine and start the game from scratch. It's actually effectively a new game. When's the last time EA had to do anything of any effort to make a new game for a sports game?
For sports?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Like, when's the last time Madden drastically changed? When's the last time FIFA drastically changed? They were so bad at basketball, the game got like wiped off the face of the earth. They lost baseball to Road to the Show. Like, they've lost more sports and games to other companies and been so bad at it that I'm like, okay, well, can they make this work, or will somebody else step in and make college football work? Because there's gonna be a market there, I'm assuming. They
lost baseball when they were still good.
Yeah,
it was so early it was hard to say if over time they would have fallen off there too, because it became more low effort. Because MVP Baseball 05 might be some people's favorite baseball game.
Yeah, it's great.
It was phenomenal. I liked those games way back when. But now, yeah, I think it's interesting because we're going to find out a lot in the next week, and we're going to find out a lot in the next year.
Yeah.
Because my question is, obviously Madden is already too far along its development. I use that word in air quotes because they're probably not changing much to have an impact this year. Even if this goes bonkers, it does huge numbers, I can't imagine them being like, oh, we need to look at doing some things different for this year's Madden because it's already July, right? Like, that game's going to come out in 2 months.
Yeah, it's a month after college.
But if EA's college football game does do really well, does that force the Madden team to step their game up finally? Even though they're competing against themselves. Like you said, it's not like, oh, this is a 2K thing, and now we got to make sure we corner the market. They're their own market. So is this going to, like you said, make people migrate from Madden because of the years of frustration? If it does really well, it's going to make some interesting ripples for sure.
And we just talked about the video game industry, people doing layoffs, all that type of stuff over and over again. Much more towards the style of the games you guys play. I just think for the industry itself, a bunch of college football nerds and weirdos like me who are in their 30s but love playing this game at 21 are going to be an interesting test market for okay, well, we're reintroducing something that we haven't had for a long time. Is the demand still there? Did we actually make it right? Did we screw it up? And does it push anyone, EA's own other football game, like Chris said, to get any better? I'm just curious from a video game industry standpoint. It's not like it's going to be some meaningful thing for everybody else. I'm just, okay, is this going to work for EA at all? Because I don't remember the last time someone dropped especially for sports, dropped a series and then tried to scramble and reintroduce a series while kind of having to rebuild it from scratch.
Is there concern it's just going to be Madden, but with college?
No, I've seen enough gameplay and I've seen enough writers I trust and believe in to say this is not Madden. There's some cool things because college football, obviously you run the option. Some schools literally that's their main offense. So when you have Army, Navy, and the Air Force and the military academies that run option runs, without getting football nerdy stuff, you have to be able to code that in the game. No one runs the option in the NFL because it doesn't work. So there's a button that works that I've seen as a really small example of you can hard fast pitch or loft it or fake pitch it. It's they built all that in. They really went to work on, all right, there's 3 different buttons for this one simple type of play. I'm curious if they tone back some of the weird passing directional stuff and make that work. It's just they had to do a lot of effort. And I also feel like they didn't have a lot of time doing this because the game got officially announced not that long ago while people thought they were working on it.
Do they have an RPG mode that tackles the real issues of college students?
You mean NIL?
Or you
transferring?
You can protest the war, but then you're going to put your season at risk.
So you want to get kicked out
after COVID, you got a 5th year player because they didn't get to enjoy the 4th,
You mean the 7th year guys who just joined the NFL for the first time at 25 years old? Yeah, and then
they get another year because of COVID.
You're basically asking for the old NFL Blitz game with college coding over it, where it was steroids and sexual assault and suspensions and shit like that. But you wanted to college. I'm going to tell you, I would play that game. I would absolutely play that game.
Well, that's the one thing that's changed since these games were popular is story modes. That 2K, obviously NBA, was primarily responsible for. Some others have tried to copy it. EA's NHL games were terrible at it. Madden was okay one year.
The first edition of it was solid.
Was decent. Yeah. You were like, all right, this is a B-, and they could build on this. They didn't. So that's the one thing that's not going to be in this year's game. If anything, it's just going to be Road to the Heisman, I expect, is just going to be about on-field.
Yeah.
And just take this player at whatever position and try and make him the Heisman. But if this does well, I would be curious if that's something they use to butter up support for year 2. because it's something that has happened in their absence, and now they can go, okay, this was successful, so we're going to put more resources into it. And now I'm not sure they're going to go for the crazy example Sean said, but you could easily do. I mean, what's the layup of a college football story? A walk-on, right? You're a walk-on. You're unheralded. You were unrecruited. You have to prove yourself. You have to earn a spot on the team in the first place, and then work your way as a starter, and then become a star.
I was gonna go with hooking up with your teacher to get better grades, but
nice.
Yes, I think the number 2 is definitely walk on, try to succeed.
Because Chris's point, like the really fun part of this is all right. So the thing used to just put you get recruited, you pretty much pick the school you want. Well, now or whatever it is. Now, like, well, theoretically, while you're playing, like, and granted, the NCAA doesn't have any involvement in this as much as players individually. So who's to say you can't? All right, I started off as a walk on at. I don't want to belittle any specific school here or whatever, but like
Texas A&M.
No. I was gonna go worse. I was gonna go worse than that. Like Akron. All right, I play in the MAC, and I'm a walk on at Akron, and I get really good. Well, now Ohio State comes calling, and they want me to transfer over to their school instead.
Would you stay loyal?
Do you stay loyal? Does you get poached? Does that affect NIL? Whatever it might be.
Does it affect your popularity?
Well, yeah, we have NIL issues. We have transfer portal issues.
Yeah.
All these things are brand new in the last few years, and we're not around when this game was.
Yeah.
So.
And again, I always think the in-game currency of money. I always like. I don't know. Was it NBA Ballers where I'm like, oh, cool, I make lots of money. I just buy do I buy a house? Do I get more achievements? I'm like, what's a really incentive? I don't really care. But it's like, oh, it's stuff I can do and go into the mode and live my life or whatever.
Well, because a few years ago you could have done, do I accept this shady deal?
Yeah.
And hope it doesn't destroy my career. But
do
now
you get
don't
suspended?
have to worry about it. Yeah. Because
do you get a free tattoo like Terrell Pryor at Ohio State and then never get to play college football again or whatever those scandals are? And that's not a thing anymore because now any place can walk up and be like, we're going to give you $1 million. And it's because of the sponsorship we're going to give you. Which there's no real sponsorship. You just get $1 million.
Yeah. No. And then if you get kicked out of school, then you end up like on the streets on drugs.
Exactly.
And then,
sure.
But the moat doesn't end. It just you're not playing football anymore. You're doing the drug thing.
And so Sean's point was, okay, now I've been kicked out of school and now I'm like a drug addict and I go where?
Yeah,
is that what your point is?
Seamlessly transitions into like a Grand Theft Auto game.
Okay,
right.
That's fine.
No,
so you would love EA to just build a game where you have a save file and you just bounce between like 8 different games and 8 different. Well, in NCAA you did well. Now you can play Madden. You're going to be a professional football player.
Or at one point in the season, aliens conquer the earth. Now you're in Halo.
All right, so this is Sean asking one serious question, then derailed the entire thought process of the video game injury. It's fine.
My previous points stand though. I think that would be fun.
They should do it though, because there's nothing easier than the first couple years of a story mode in a sports game. The reason I think people got mad at 2K Overtime was like, well, they just run out of ideas. Well, yeah, kind of, because how many ways is there to do it? Okay, you're undrafted and you make your way into the league. Okay, you're a highly touted recruit and you're a star in college. You get to play some college and you come into the league. You got hurt and you have to come back. You have Michael B. Jordan as your best friend teammate. All those things happen, and now it's like, well, now what else do you do? It's at the end of the day, it's still just playing in the NBA.
You know what I thought for years would be a great NBA story, and this is serious. And the whole Bronny situation is taking some wind out of my sails now. But I've said it for a long time. It's like your father is an NBA star, and like, how do you navigate that? Or like the shadow of their legacy, has that opened some doors for you? Has that put on too much pressure? Like, what does that look like?
I'm surprised they didn't do it just because of Steph.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, well, Tim Hardaway Jr., nobody gives a shit about him.
Right.
Like Kenyon Martin Jr., nobody gives a fuck. But Steph, Del Curry was a respectable NBA player. I think he made an All-Star game or two. I think he won a 3-point contest. Like, he was a good NBA player, and then you could have done something along those lines. Now it's sitting there for him. Yeah. It wouldn't shock me if that was in this year's game.
I mean, I get funny. Like, Steph and Clay is the same exact thing. Since Michael Thompson was a serviceable, solid player, was on the Showtime Lakers, and then his son came in, and then was watched now, but was good for a really long time. So I think you're right there. I'm always curious of like what EA's creative team's resumes are. Like, who are these people that work for those games writing it? What games have they worked on before? Because like, it just doesn't feel like people who work on writing sports games have any semblance of understanding of the video game industry as a whole from a story mode perspective.
Yeah, and I want a little bit of conflict. Yeah. Like,
and again, Madden tried that, and I thought that's why it did a good job, because it pushed back on you a couple times in that mode. Was it? I can't remember what the quarterback one. I don't remember what it was actually called anymore. Honestly, that's probably not good that it popped out of my brain already.
No,
where you're on the reality show trying to be the quarterback that gets coached by the guy or whatever it may be, just to get drafted, and you were a flame out in college because you quit in the middle of a game. They actually did build that, and then their follow-up was so bad because they soon use the same character. Like, you can't run the same character back in that mode that you just did. Come up with something new, guys. Like, it's not that complicated.
Literally just base the character off Brawny and just have, you're only here because your dad's in the NBA. Have all these people, and then try to come out of the shadow, and then hopefully you average more than 4 points.
I mean, since you're taking it seriously, I think you actually are onto something. I think again, I played that stupid Madden mode like 3 different times and chose different choices to see where it's going. The weird high school games you got to play were fun because you just played a high school offense and you just could do whatever you wanted. And that wasn't super overly challenging. They put you in tough situations, but like the mode playing against the computer wasn't that hard. But you did, like, there was impact to the decisions you made over and over again, which again, you guys have taught me multiple times is an important factor in a lot of these games.
What do you think the appeal would be for like a RPG story for football set or any sport that's like not set in our generation? Do you think
you did throwback stuff?
So what made me think of it was if you do remember the Titans, but in a football game.
You remember the Titans as in like your high school that you played for was like segregated and then
or
gets
college or whatever. But like you're by setting it in another generation, you're able to tackle some of those issues.
I mean,
but do you think it loses the allure of like, oh, that's not modern rosters? I don't give a shit.
No, you're asking the wrong person because I'm a nerd when it comes to sports history
in the first place. I think that would be
fun
if they were accurate to like the teams that existed back then.
And I mean, some of those work in like the UFC games, and this is not that in depth, but like they have you like recreate the fight that happened in like 1999 or in like 2001. Like major fights in UFC history has been a mode a couple of times. The problem is like, and sometimes it's like you need to knock him out the same way. He knocked out. Like you have to head kick. You gotta like wear him down and head kick him the same way and recreate the history, as opposed to being dropped in as a fictional character in the history at the time and rewrite history in a way.
I like rewriting history. That's
and I
fun.
think I think NCAA also did that years ago, where they were like, it's fourth, it's 4th and 3, and you're on your own 10-yard line. This team came back and won. Can you also do it? And you can do it in whatever plays you want, but you were dropped into still a historical moment.
Yeah, that's better.
You weren't which is a blending of what you're looking for and what I was saying with the UFC thing.
Well, I like that, and then like you create a butterfly effect that like, destroys the universe.
Sure, exactly. And then again, you're a drug addict and you drop out, and then you go
go
back to GTA. Or at that point, it's like Cyberpunk. I guess it's just you just fall in the Cyberpunk universe. It's not really GTA anymore.
It's like 400 years in the future.
The WWE games have dabbled with that too.
Like, and I think
there's these marquee matches over the years, and you can jump in as this person, or you can play it as somebody else and see if you can duplicate what they did.
And then it cutscenes to the actual match. Yeah. You wear someone down or whatever, and it shows you highlights of that actual match as it was happening. And I think those games have gotten reviewed much better from WWE in the past couple years.
It's weird to me though, just because we have not really seen a heavy sports/RPG. The elements from both have blended over the years, and you can argue that just any My Player in 2K because of all the different stats and builds and whatever. But like, other than maybe, I don't know, Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, there are not a ton of examples of really hardcore sports RPGs, especially story-driven ones. Yeah. And I think that's like an untapped part of the market. We see a lot of like blurring of lines in genres, right? We've seen roguelike stuff leak into a lot of other genres. We've seen a lot of games that are just like The Legend of Zelda or Metroidvania stuff. There's got to be a huge overlap between like sports nerds and RPG nerds that would still be enough to play those games if somebody would make one.
Yeah, and I feel like a great example would be like how they put, this is not the same, but like Gwent in Witcher 3 or the Shrek. The fucking, oh god, and Michaela would kill me if I forgot this. Rebirth has a card game. I forgot what it's called. Queen's Blood. But that's a card game. But if you were to put like a soccer game in there, it would be the same idea where they intertwine these perfectly.
Well, because I mean, you guys talk so much about like the anime it's a volleyball team that you like so much.
Yes.
You're telling me that you couldn't merge that concept into a game as an RPG? And you have games, and if you're individually playing like we all do in 2K, and you struggle or you play well or whatever, but that actually has a lasting effect in some whatever direction. Because, like to Chris's point, the one thing like the WWE probably does this better than anyone when you create a character. And I remember the old No Mercy game from N64 where it had a ladder, and it was like you go here, you lose the match.
It's branching paths in a game from 1999.
Yeah.
Surprisingly ahead of his time for one of the early wrestling games.
And it was great. I think everyone loved that mode. And the newer versions of WWE do it a little bit, but it's not the same, and it's not good compared to what it used to be for No Mercy. It was simplistic. There was cutscenes in the back. There was a whole storyline to it. They had a whole thing. They had a real writing team write a storyline for every set of titles that was in WWE at that time. And I look back at that and I'm like, wow, I would still play. I have that game, and I've still played that mode in recent years compared to what I would do replaying Madden 2019. I don't care. I'm not.
And by the way, there are like no volleyball games at all.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, and I guess the sport just doesn't have mainstream success, and it does make me think. When you think about sports recently that are experiencing mainstream success, is NBA 2K going to do a WNBA story mode this year? Are there panicked meetings happening at 2K where they're like, "Oh shit!" Now that we have Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all the other folks we've talked about in some recent episodes, do we need to have a WNBA my player?
Given that I went to a WNBA game 2 days ago, I could chime in on this. You probably should, because I went to the Aces game against Dallas on Sunday when I was in Vegas. That crowd was sold out again, and it was 10,000 or so fans. And those people who are dedicated to those teams are fucking into it. That game was genuinely a lot of fun that they put on. And I mean, maybe this is me because I'm a really lame basketball person, but it's kind of refreshing when there's not easy dunks over and over again. A lot of the women have to be really good jump shooters to create some offense. And that was a shit ton of what was happening, was a lot of pick and roll actual action to get people open for shots rather than, oh, we didn't play defense this time, we're going to go. And there's some fast break cherry picking stuff over and over again. But I just saw the attendance numbers for WNBA on Twitter right before the show started. There's X number of teams averaging over 10,000 fans. There's been one team last year, one a couple years ago. It's been since 18 or 19 since at least two teams averaged 10,000. Obviously, Indiana's at 12,000. Vegas is at 10,000. A couple others are there. That popularity is pushing. And if you just embed that into 2K and don't need to make it its own game, I think it's there to do a storyline of some sort.
It's funny you said that because I was watching WNBA recently, and I thought we're either nearing or we're there where, and this is probably going to end up sounding terribly sexist, and I apologize, but I always, growing up, I preferred watching women's tennis because there was an element of this is at least the kid me thing approach, but I can follow the ball. I can see what's happening. And the mechanics and
the nuance
the
of the sport
it's more interesting than the men are smashing the shit out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not, at least at the ones, I'm sure that there are exceptions. The matches that I watched on the men's, it was over really fast every round. And it was just the women's is so much more entertaining.
That's 100% happening in disc golf right now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of disc golfers like me are ranked around where some of the mid-tier women's pros are. So if I watch them, I'm like, oh, I could make that throw. And then there's guys on the men's tour who throw at 600 feet, and I'm like, I will never do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's never going to happen. And that's happened in other sports as well. But I've experienced that recently because people talk about it's fun watching the men, but I can't do that. I watch the women's game because I can, so I can relate to that. Oh, I can throw those shots. I can shape my disc that way. It's the same thing with tennis. You're right, because they actually have more longer rallies, strategic approaches to points, and it's not just serve it 150 down the pipe and see if somebody can return.
It's just
exactly.
It's okay, we're going to ISO ball. Someone's just going to drive to the hoop and dunk it. And that happens a little bit, especially the Aces have some players that are really talented and are among the best in the league. They can get away with that. But it's not every single freaking play over and over again. I watched them set motions. And I was staring at the game. I'm like, this was amazing. And the game was a tight game. Dallas was playing pretty well against Vegas for most of it until the mid third quarter when they started blowing them out. But I sat there and I'm like, the environment was really fun. The crowd was really into it. The Aces do a very good job of leaning into this, of being goofy and funny, not taking themselves super seriously. So the game feels fun, and it's not oh my God, it's not all life and death. They're a really good team. They're back-to-back champions. And one of their players has a freaking puppet of herself that she's chanting defense with the puppet, and trying to not move her mouth, chanting defense for the voice of it. And I'm like, that is so bizarre and weird, but it was really funny and something different. And they just had a bunch of different versions of stuff like that on the video boards where the women seem like they're way more invested and like having fun and not taking themselves so seriously. Like a bunch of NBA guys are like, I'm not doing that. You're just too cool for it. And I'm like, you don't need to be too cool for it. You play fucking basketball for it.
Reminds me a little bit of like Golden State in their heyday. Like just not taking it way too seriously, having fun.
Exactly.
They always seem to be enjoying themselves.
Exactly.
Except when Draymond was punching
people in the dick over and over again.
Well, he was enjoying that.
Yeah, that's true.
And so like that's a tangent off of that, but I'm like, I came away from watching that Aces game being like, I need to watch more WNBA. I'm going to enjoy it a lot more. It's during the perfect time of year when sports get cleared out and it plays out right now when baseball's really boring during this time of season. You can't. I mean, you guys don't care in general, but it's really boring this time of year in the stretch run. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So the WNBA has a shorter schedule. Every game's actually more important in a funny backward way, while they're not taking it as seriously. Or not, and I don't mean take it seriously. They want to win. I mean, the Aces were pissed that they were losing that game at some points, but just the presentation is not. We have to be all stern and flexy and angry.
Well, I think the biggest key for them is that the talent floor has risen. And I don't mean that just because of this crop of rookies and the headliners. I mean like the average WNBA player is light years ahead of where they were 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's be very honest, the average WNBA player 10, 15 years ago kind of sucked. You know,
it was a harder product to watch.
Yeah, it was really rough. Now you actually see these elements where, again, it reminds you of maybe good college basketball programs on the men's side where you're like, okay, now we're running actual basketball actions. Now we're seeing teamwork and cohesion and passing. It's not just like we used to have the video where they would make fun of the Diana Taurasi with like all the jump shots and missed layups and stuff. Those jokes weren't totally unfounded. Yeah. But now you've seen the skill of the league rise to where it's like, yeah, now you do kind of want to check it out, not only because they have stars, but because overall the talent is so much better.
And I don't even think that's offensive because that's how things work. If you look at early NBA, it was a fucking dumpster fire. And that's what they bring up, like, oh, he was playing against plumbers and whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's an excellent point.
Was just the quality was bad.
Even videos from the 70s are kind of jarring.
Bad.
Yeah.
Like Magic, Bird, and eventually Jordan really started to, and I guess Julius Erving and others, but like the athleticism of the NBA really ramped up in the 80s. You go back and watch some games from like the mid-70s, like hell, the Gar Heard shot heard around the world. You're like, this basketball is ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they started taking it a lot more serious, which they start taking more serious. They're training more for it. More people are watching, so the money's going up, so then more people start taking it more seriously. And there's an evolution to it. And now the WNBA is following the same trajectory, and it's great. And I'm glad.
I mean, I guess there were missed shots. People missed some wide open threes here and there. Some people also just absolutely drilled really clutch late threes for the Aces to pull away. And I'm like, yeah, I can see why this team is the back-to-back champions and has run really well. Good for the Mark Davis, the Raiders owner, who also owns the Aces, was courtside at the game. One of the Raiders players was courtside at the game. I'm like, you guys give a shit about this. This is awesome. And again, good for Vegas because they only got 3 pro sports teams right now, and they absolutely love that WNBA team. And I'm like, wow, that was brilliant to move that team from San Antonio, was where they were when they were the Stars after being in Utah, to go there. I'm like, yeah, you found a market that was like underserved. I mean, and you took advantage of it. You have an awesome arena inside the Mandalay Bay, which was really, really cool to show up to the hotel I'm staying at and walk into the game. And so, yeah, I hope that because we've seen FIFA take that on more and more, that the women's teams got bled in. We tried to play on the channel and stuff like that. And you shouldn't make the women's versions of the players actively slower. You are playing women versus women. So if a woman is 99 speed, she should be 99 speed like the men because she's playing against other women's players in that video game. Yeah. So FIFA needs to get better at that, or whatever soccer sport.
At least shrink the gap.
Yeah, there's no reason.
I understand there being a small difference. You don't necessarily want the women's game just to play like the men's game, but the difference was way too drastic.
Yeah, you're really disingenuous with the way you built that. So I hope, because if there's WNBA teams built into 2K, like you've already built the rosters in, you built the teams in, you built the logos, and it's all there. There's no reason to not just start the exact same thing.
And they can do the same formula, because Jackson Ellis is a name I still remember. That's the rival from the first 2K like RPG story type season. He was a pain in the ass. And it didn't matter how many times you put up like 50 on him and he scored 12 and you beat his ass. He kept coming back for more beatings. And he was great. He was simple, but he was great. And they can use the animosity towards the rookies this year to write a very easy story in short time to have that ready for when that game ships in a couple months.
You're a rookie. You play. They just code a couple college teams in. You pick one of the major colleges. You're really good. They all hate you because you're really good and you're revolutionizing.
Exactly.
You're revolutionizing the sport. They're like, we've been here for fucking 25 years. Who the fuck do you think you are, coming in and helping our league, or taking over our league and acting like we needed you desperately? It's so easily there to make a compelling story, and then it'll be only for 1 or 2 years. Then you have to get creative again. But I'll just straight up say it: you do that, I'm buying that game and I'm playing that mode.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm doing that.
Yeah,
you do the Rock Band. At this point, you can do the Rock Band like journey where you start on a bus and then you get a little more popular. All of a sudden, you're chartering flights.
Yeah.
It literally is the
just,
WB.
Like you don't need to be ashamed of that history thing to lean into it in these games. And I think that's why we don't have a lot of these RPG things, because the leagues are scared of it. NFL doesn't want to look bad, so doesn't want to license things that makes it look controversial or bad. So you have to have an unbranded league that no one wants to buy it. And the WNBA is just like, fuck it. This is out in the news. We're proud that we're developing. We're proud that we're advancing. Let's lean into this mode thing. It's already being talked about. It's not like you're gonna make people talk about it more than they already are when that's what your news cycle is. Just go with it and tell 2K, we want to be a part of this. We want to get behind this. Create a storyline for us. We're going to happily license all of our teams and our logos, and we just lean into what this is.
I don't even care if it's only a women's story. If it's like,
there's
not like, a men's story and a women's story. It's like, if you just put all your effort in one story. I don't know if they're going to do that because they're going to feel like they're leaving money on the table. But
I'm sure
I would buy that game, whereas I'm not buying the next 2K game.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's a good point, because when I ask why there hasn't been more of an overlap between those, I do think it has to be licensed, because you're not going to get RPG fans to play a sports game. I don't think overall some would, and that it's a tough bridge to cover. But you can get sports fans to play an RPG game if it has those trappings. I think there's a lot easier converting those fans into playing more of an RPG approach than it is getting a lot of traditional RPG players, who a lot of which are nerds, to play a sports game when they have no idea what a sport is.
And the NHL should be doing this, and the MLS should be doing this. The leagues who aren't as popular and are trying to make sure they hold traction or gain traction and are still national brands that pull decent audiences, you should be also doing that.
See, but if you're the NBA, if you're the NFL, I think NFL struggles maybe more with
they're terrified of everything. Yeah.
But you I would see that as an opportunity. This is why I'm not the commissioner. Because I would come down on all the fucking assholes in the league, and also this. Why wouldn't you see that as like an opportunity of like, oh my God, if we lean into the RPG side of things, we could convert all of those fucking dorks, if you have that mentality, to get into football. Like, you could see that as the gateway to a whole new audience who has never cared about your game before.
And for a bunch of old white men who have made a bunch of money and don't want to risk their money, even though risking their money would be really nothing, it'd be fine. The fact that they've embraced Taylor Swift's whole vibe in their league and that audience of fans, Sean, maybe they're a couple years away. Maybe they're a couple years away because they actually
do it in a story mode.
Yeah.
Now you could be an NFL player, and maybe it's not just a carbon copy. You're not being Travis Kelce, and it's not Taylor Swift, but it's you date a movie star. You have you marry these two different cultures. Like, again, we just talked about the WNBA example. The NBA has embraced almost too much its drama over the last few years.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do like the Ja Morant gun shit, but you can do Bronny and LeBron. You can do like actual things that have happened in the league that were interesting, and use them. The material's already there.
I love that. I know in the NBA they do like the options for talking, and one of them being aim finger gun at fans. Oh, now you have to enroll in the sensitivity training.
They're all so afraid of controversial shit. It's like, yeah, man, we don't want like a Ray Rice NFL situation where he's assaulting his wife and he gets busted, gets suspended. We don't want that. No one wants to fucking have fun with that. But you're telling me the goofy shit like the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift stuff. Again, the people who are angry about that aren't buying that game anyway, so it doesn't matter. Most of the fans that I know, most of my friends who again are dedicated football fans for decades, we think this Travis Kelce shit's like the funniest thing in the world. People take it so seriously, and it's like, oh no, I didn't get to see random fans I've never seen before, and I had to see Taylor Swift for 8 seconds instead. Oh, what the big fucking deal. Yeah. You're telling me that like people wouldn't want to play that and be like, oh, that's a hilariously comical situation. Just lean into being funny. Again, sports take themselves so fucking seriously. Having run social media for college sports programs, and I couldn't have any fun because everyone wants to take themselves seriously and make them seem so tough. Just lean into being funny.
Which is so stupid because the most memorable social media accounts, like, the Flyers mascot.
Exactly.
Or, the minor league baseball teams that do goofy stuff, or the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Whomever. The ones that do embrace that personality are the ones that succeed. But everybody's so fucking scared and or run by people who don't get it because they won't do that.
The people up on the very tippy top are always where they're going to lose their jobs if the team is bad. So you can't make fun of the team if it's bad because people might lose their jobs, blah, blah, blah. And it's just business atmosphere crap to where, like, I feel like hockey teams and hockey social media, I've seen more and more distancing between operations and social media for a lot of teams. The Arizona Coyotes are the exception of this, by the way, given that their stupid shit owner's son was the fucking guy running all the social media shit or demanding what was done on there.
Yeah.
But other teams can embrace this and have fun and goof around a little bit more other than funny, witty caption on like the clip of the game or whatever. Like more and more college teams are like, yeah, we're not going to, they're like, don't even ask us what the final score was. A couple NHL teams I feel like have done that because the NHL it feels like it doesn't have as reputation of needing to be serious. So it's like, again, sports are fun. It's all a bunch of children's games that we pay lots of money to wear shirts of and go to games and support. I get that it's a business. But also, it's grounded from the basis of this is a fucking sport, and you're just playing a sport. And I get for the success, people's livelihoods, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. If you also get fired as being a head coach, you made a couple $1 million.
It is funny that we're all wearing sports gear. Which
we
was
are,
not
exactly.
planned.
Me. No, shit.
Of literally 3 different sports, by the way.
Right.
Baseball, hockey, and basketball.
Yeah. Cody, what would make you play like the next generation? You only play sports games, really.
I do primarily play a lot of sports games.
Is it VR? Is it brain interface? Is it haptic vest? So when you get tackled,
I don't care about any of
it?
that. I don't care about any of that. What we're talking about is exactly what I care about playing more. Again, I believe the last Madden game I bought was the one that had that story mode in it. Like 100%. I haven't bought Madden for a couple years.
Well, so why I ask is I played another VR. So I dabbled in VR. I've told all of the fans of the show, and I thought it was okay. And I've now played the like top of the line VR game, Half-Life Alyx. I don't know if you've even heard of that. And
no, I'm dumb.
And this is like strike 2 for VR, I think, because it was fine. It was a lot of work for like it's cool to look like around and some of the physics stuff is really entertaining, but like the interface is really annoying. I can't wear my contacts. The headset gets uncomfortable. There's a lot of stuttering that happens, and it's just like too much effort. And so we're not there on VR. And I have one more shot. I have the PSVR 2.
Yeah, because I bought the original PSVR, which was cool because I actually bought it years ago, and I haven't talked about it because it wasn't very fun.
Okay.
Cool thing is, it got delivered really late, and I got lost. So I told Amazon I got lost and to reimburse me my money, and then it showed up after all. So I actually got it for free.
Okay.
So.
And now you've admitted it on the show again.
Thanks, Amazon. It doesn't matter. It happened years ago.
I can't stop you from incriminating yourself.
Okay.
That's right.
No, it didn't show up on time. I said, I think you lost my package. Like, oh, we're really sorry. That's an expensive package. We better credit you. And they did. And then it showed up.
And by the way, despite it being free, he still couldn't find the grace to enjoy it.
Yeah. That's how bad it was. So I played what was the original one where it was JobBot because it was a really good introduction to VR.
Uh-huh.
And that game was pretty fun. I was like, oh, cool. I get to make burgers and it's a weird robot themed thing. And then I work in an office and then I work at a garage. It was fun. I can't replay that game. It didn't last very long. I played the Creed boxing game that was on that. That was part of it because it was part of the package. Do you know how miserable it is to play a boxing game and have to box people and get really sweaty when a thing is suction cupped to your fucking head?
Yeah, right. And it gets it will get fogged up.
You get foggy.
Yeah.
I'm also I had to clear a bunch of space, move stuff
have to
around.
Clear the space. I've hit my hand on my desk 50
exactly
times.
So kind of games are set to be played at a on a couch or on a gamer chair and all that. Now we gotta stand up. I get it's immersive and fun and all that shit. But then I'm like, okay, well now I'm blindly wandering around. I have to clear a bunch of shit out of my house. I'm gonna get sweaty. And what's it all for? Because Wii's version of standing up and moving for Wii Sports and all that, I'm like, that was good enough.
Well,
to me, that was fine.
That's the comparison now, though, I think. Honestly.
Yeah.
As I've looked at this more, I haven't played VR myself, so maybe I'm way the fuck off, but I'm like, it's a fancier Wii. And the games that are the most successful are the ones like Beat Saber, where they're not really worried about immersing you into a world fully, And it's just more about these controls in an environment where it makes sense.
Yes.
Those work, much like certain titles on the Wii work, but there's plenty of other ones with motion capture or with motion controls that didn't work for shit.
I don't see, they keep wanting, the Wii motion controls was the future, and VR was the future, and I'm thinking they're not. What they are is their own sort of subdivision of gaming, their own category, and that's fine, and I will dabble in it occasionally. But like I would not want to see. Oh my god, I can't wait till all games are VR.
The best
we're not
way
there yet.
The best way I could phrase it is because again, having just been in Vegas, been at arcades, and half the fucking games are VR games now. And I'm like, what you're trying to do is basically make it an arcade at home at a massive cost.
Kind of.
I would rather just go and have it a novelty thing and play it 1 or 2 times for like half hour, and I blow my $30 this one time, and I got to play the game. It is not built super well. It's still an arcade game. But it's also like, 25% better than the best fucking version you can get that you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on, and then you don't really want to go replay it. Because, like, Sean, all your fucking games of the year and the games you want to play the most, you replay, they're sitting there with your controller in your hand. Or you guys find the roguelike games, and it's like, this is the shit you enjoy the most. Never are you saying.
I spent 5 days on Poke Road.
It's my unwind activity.
Exactly.
And nothing about standing up and moving around a ton is unwinding for me. It's not to say I wouldn't like to do it.
Yes.
But I was going to 100% say the same thing. We saw at Golfland down in Phoenix, either the Fials are still here, Beat Saber was one of the games they had in the arcade. And there was another one that was a racing one that we didn't see how it worked because it was practically broken. But I would much rather have like a business, like almost like an escape room type business where it's like, here, we've got 6 rooms that are already cleared out and we have the best equipment we can get. You can come play it for $50 for an hour. And that's where I would like to experience it. I don't really think I need this in my home.
Especially because you at least have a big, massive space cleared out. Because if I'm going to play VR, I would like to be able to move around a space that's bigger than 2x2. If I'm going to do it, I want to be like fucking 10 by 10, 20 by 20, where I'm actually moving around the world. That's immersive. It's not immersive when it's like, oh, I spin around like this and I shoot. That's not immersive. I think you just
illustrated part of the issue of why I don't think it's there yet. You want to be able to move around and kind of be more fully immersed. I like just sitting. And still having the ability, Resident Evil 4 did a really good job of this. I can move and I'm in 3D space, but like I don't have to fucking stand up or spin around, which I don't want to do. I want to sit on my ass, and I want to be. Chris as an unwind. I don't mind being like scary games. I really like, and that certainly sometimes not unwinding. It's the opposite, but like I enjoy that. I don't want to move around. I don't want to be like super active.
And I'm saying that if you want to move around, it should be, to Chris's point, a thing you go do. You go out into, again. Let's create a fucking VR escape room or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Like that's where I feel like when you go out of your home and do it, I just don't know how well VR translates to in your home.
Well,
unless you have a massive mansion and have built this up, or you have a spare room you can wander in.
Yeah, here's what's happening. So either, and this is another one of the problems, you pay something that's really affordable, like a MetaQuest, so you're paying less, but then you come into, I was up until 4 a.m., Cody, trying to get this thing to interface, not being able to figure it out. Turns out there's a very specific way that you have to, there's like 8 different ways to boot the game, but only one works. And it's this very specific sequence. So I had to get all that figured out. Then every once in a while, it just like stutters to where I can't even move. It just did not work super well. To make it work better, I could have spent more money. But then, the really good rigs, you're talking like $1,000 or more. And then you have to have a computer that can help facilitate it as well most of the time. So, or you do the PSVR 2, which is $550. We've talked about on the show before. More than a PS5
itself,
which it needs to run.
Yes. So it's $1,000.
That's $1,000. Yeah. And they are quietly discontinuing support of the PSVR 2.
And that's the and to me that's the problem is that you're paying so much for it and you're not getting back anywhere remotely the return on investment of that. And by the time you get it, if VR is still advancing, like, I feel like the technology is passing it by so fucking quickly. So you buy this giant product, and maybe you buy the giant product a year into its release. They kick out, they start pulling back support. They're going to make a new one. It's like, well, you're just always chasing, and you're constantly reinvesting.
Yeah, and I've talked to this about this before. They don't speak to each other. They're talking about allowing PSVR 2 to interface with like your computer and Steam. That's not done yet. So you have a very limited amount of games to play that they're not supporting anymore. And I'm not a CEO. I'm not Roger Goodell either. I'm not any of these people that I want to be. But I would have said, take a hit on all units sold. And maybe they are even with $550. But I would have done it more just to get it fucking out there, get an adoption rate, and then make it up later. But if no one buys the thing, it's not going to go anywhere. And what are we saying? It hasn't gone anywhere.
There's no player base.
No one buys the game. No one buys the unit. No one wants to make games for it.
Yeah.
There's no games for it, so no one wants to buy the unit.
It's what we're
Someone
seeing
has
right,
to concede.
We're seeing right now with Nintendo. I saw a chart the other day that was amazing to me because I hadn't actually looked at these numbers. The Switch is catching up to the Nintendo DS. Like the most popular game system maybe of all time. It will probably get there. It's got like 141 million in sales. The DS was like 150 something. So with another year or so before the Switch 2, Switch probably surpasses it with this holiday season coming up. The Wii was also over 100 million consoles sold. And the reason the Wii worked was because its motion stuff was simple, accessible, but also the price point was affordable. The lesson that we're not learning is the Virtual Boy, which was super expensive and bad. The Wii U, which had 13 million consoles sold.
Wow.
Compared to the Wii. That was the part that shocked me. I was like, I knew sales were bad. I would have assumed they probably sold like 30, 35 million of those things, right? Nowhere near the 100 of the Wii. 13 million. But it was the same problem. People didn't want this fancy-ass tablet. You needed the whole system, and it didn't really work to play it off of the TV. So it's like we keep having these struggles in the video game industry where people aren't recognizing, like, none of this fanciness matters if you can't get a player base to support it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what's going to happen. The last vestige of hope is Doug let me borrow his PSVR 2. I've cleared out Half-Life Alyx, so I'm going to try it. If it does not fucking blow me away, I'm going to be writing off VR for like another decade at least.
And I think at a certain point, I really don't think it keeps making home sales. If it's,
I don't know,
everyone's just chasing this imaginary money pocket thing and things. And I'm like, yeah, you know what's actually going to make you money? When Rockstar fucking puts out like GTA 6, it's going to send hundreds of millions of copies. Mm-hmm. When all these popular series just turn over and make their new games, like that's where the money is. You want to chase it with this VR bullshit that you have to develop over and over again that you don't make games for. Like, what do you just, like, where the money actually is. It's in these established things. It's also just making a good story to a fucking game. So clearly, you guys have mentioned that over and over again.
And so often, even with Nintendo, I think a lot of times they almost succeed by accident, and it's because they have really good franchises. But the DS, what did most games do with the DS? Oh, we have this functionality, top screen, bottom screen. Most of the time, they did not base the gameplay off of both. They just like stuck the menu on the bottom and the action on top. That was it.
Your accessibility was just simple. It's like, okay, you don't need to code the game into being like, oh, you can use both screens at once. It's like, no, you just made it convenient that I don't have to open a fucking menu.
Half the time on the 3DS, the 3D was extremely optional. Very few games were built around the idea that it's going to be 3D. Mm-hmm. The Wii. Mario Galaxy, you can flip the thing to do an extra jump. For the most part, you could also shoot the shinies or whatever that most people I know didn't really do a whole lot of, and that was it. So like simple is better until they figure it out.
Simple and optional.
And optional, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
You put something that's required into the game and the thing doesn't fucking work. Well, the game's not going to work then if it's requied, and you can't enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it.
Skyward Sword, I think is a really good game, but I think its legacy was hurt a little bit because it has a non-optional sword mechanic that they tried to replicate with the joystick now in the remake. It works okay, but yeah, it's tough because it's integral to the core game.
Yeah, when I think back to what my favorite motion controls were, besides Wii Sports, because like the bowling was so much fun, the tennis. Weirdly enough, I always go back to opening the doors in Metroid Prime 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, this is kind of cool. I get to stick my arm out and turn it and pull the door open. I don't know why, but something about that felt great. When you were forced to do it for main mechanics, it didn't feel so good.
And with like the stuff in Half-Life where, you do a lot of that. There's like the physics are really astonishing, and so you're like opening doors, opening hatches, sticking your head through like a thing and looking up. Loading your gun feels like very visceral. I at some point, it was a 15-hour campaign. And at some point I was like, this is fun, but I'm excited to be done with it so I can go back to regular games.
How many monotonous things that do you do in your regular life that you are being forced to do as part of your really, really extensive long video game?
I was like, oh, cool, I'm opening a door.
And you're like, I don't like opening doors in my own life. I mean, it's cool to do it as a part of the game, but I'd rather it be optional.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like opening the door a couple times a day. It's like, oh my God, I've opened 150 fucking doors today.
They have a
playing
lot
this
of,
goddamn game.
Switches that you grab and pull. And
like we somehow succeeded over this because I did get sore playing it, but I'm like, I don't really want to get sore playing a video game. I want to like be contorting my body in ways that like are uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, what'd you do? I'm like, well, I was in a VR headset and I got really tired and like my legs and knees are sore because I was standing up. To your point of you want to sit on your ass and not have to worry about it. And it's like, Wii was the only exception because it was competitive. I only got sore playing tennis with my arm being sore when I was trying to whack the shit out of it and beat my friends who were staying next to me playing it against me. So it wasn't even like, I didn't really want to work out, but I wanted to beat their ass. So I worked harder doing it.
They talk about like disruptive technology, and there's a lot of different criteria that make something disruptive. But one of them is when it gets... when the cost gets low enough to where it can be mass adopted. Yeah. And with VR, I think what they need to do is have a lot of the functionality be optional.
Yeah.
Which is what we're getting at, right? If you want the crazy immersive stuff, great. If you just want to be able to sit down and have it play more like a traditional first-person shooter, you have that option. But developing that is so cost prohibitive right now that it's not going to happen. And so we're at this gap. And I don't know what's going to take to cross like this. The final, a lot of tech is like that. Or recently, self-driving cars we talked about, we got to like 80% like that. Like, oh my God, it's happening. And this last 20% feels like they're never going to figure it out. So
you mean because like the cars keep killing people over and over again?
It's like so close.
Well, we made it drive and we made it stay in the lanes, but it won't stop fucking running people over.
They can't solve the trolley problem. We're having a hard time with the trolley problem.
It's like exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it's close, but no one seems to know how to actually get it across the finish line. And I think with VR, like it's pretty cool and it's close, but like, what is it going to take to make it viable for everybody? To get rid of the sickness. To make the headsets more comfortable, like I don't know.
I mean, what you're saying is it's a half-baked idea. It's a cool idea in theory, and we know how to do a bunch of it really simply, but we don't actually know how to finish the story or the plan of what we're trying to do.
We need to get the holograms from fucking Star Trek,
exactly,
and we're not close.
Yeah, why can't we get that? Where's my flying car? You have a car that can drive itself now. Make it fly. Why hasn't it flown yet?
Well, and the thing, people are saying Half-Life 3 has not come out yet because they haven't perfected this brain interface yet. And I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't know if I want that. That seems like a whole lot. And
maybe I just want to play a fucking video game.
There's a person who plays Elden Ring with a brain interface. They go viral every time they beat a boss, and it's like, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how far off we are from that being meaningful for anybody else or mass-produced or anything of the sort.
Well,
but
and it's great for the people, obviously, like if you can't use your hands.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, how amazing. If that is not the case for you, I don't know. We'll see.
It does raise the question of like, would you want to play a VR basketball game, or would you rather just go to the gym and shoot?
Yeah.
Because even if it's a decent experience, and yeah, you could play in the NBA that way, but there's no tactile basketball. There's no like the parts of the experience are still gone. Well, I don't know if it's really that good.
On some of the VRs, didn't we start like building in that you could like courtside watch the game on your VR headset? Or they're trying to. I thought they were trying to introduce that.
They were introducing that. They were doing a thing with like they could apply filters to it, so it looked like we saw the thing at the All-Star game last year, the NBA All-Star game, where they were like, look, it can look like a comic book movie, and it can look like this, and we're like, okay, can you get your referees to suck less bad? Yeah. Can you do that instead?
So you want, when I watch basketball, which I'm going to probably mostly do essentially with some other people around. So we all need headsets now, or I'm going to sit like a dork wearing a headset watching the NBA game while all of you are like looking at me and not really watching the game. I was like, no, I'm watching it with people.
Yeah, I mean, and AR, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, and there's a show we watched called Evil, and they have an AR game that actually looks really scary. And I'm like thinking, I don't think we're even close to, maybe I'm wrong, but to superimpose actually horrific images that are like game-like and make it seem like it's in your living room and moving with the physics of the room. I don't know that we're there, but that's kind of interesting. I don't know. Just like there's like a lot of half-baked ideas that I don't think we're there yet, and maybe that's how you get there. Maybe I should be less critical because these are steps to getting it where we need to go. But I'm not convinced.
I feel like you could say that, but then it's like I think back to like again. I mean, like I'm looking at like all the Zelda stuff, and I'm like, well, I think back to like Ocarina of Time was really fun on N64. I loved that game. You've made the technology better, the graphics look better, and all that, but I'm like, you're still succeeding with effectively a similar premise and similar characters all these years later. So your advancements in video games are just building on that idea. I don't know, not a lot of shit has been introduced. Like you've made things more handheld, so I could play the game more on the go. That was pretty cool and helpful. But it's like, to me, I don't want to say video games haven't advanced far because they look more amazing and the games process things faster. But I'm like, I'm still sitting on my ass with a controller, playing a game on my couch, on my TV, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing when I was 7 years old.
Well, in our blowout of the preview for next gen, Chris and Dave and I were like, what are we even looking for anymore? Because the graphics they're going to continually getting marginally better, which is good, but also maybe problematic because of this uncanny valley area we're approaching. But like, it's going to be faster load times and things like that. It's not going to be better experiences or new experiences, even really.
And that's a good example of like, we've talked about that. We can just turn on 2K and we can play right away. And I also remember, I think back to, I'm like, well, the N64 didn't take that long.
Yeah,
for me to play.
Cartridges, just too much data to put on a cartridge anymore.
Exactly.
So
it's like, so they just did the thing that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
They found a way to make the tech now for bigger games do the thing that we did formerly do. We went through games are pretty fast. Now they're kind of slow because they're getting better. Now they're fast again. We're just cycling back to what we were good at doing when those games were considered really fucking good. I'm like, just keep perfecting the shit and making sure as you advance it, you don't regress in any way. We kind of, to me, have met what I want out of video games. Other than all the shit we just talked about 20, 30 minutes ago.
The thing that I'm wondering if is making the game industry nervous or not is how much do people care about graphics anymore? And because a lot of the big game, Elden Ring was huge. Not really very good graphics for this gen. Nintendo has been going more style over graphics. And then you had that Hellblade 2 game. Best graphics I've ever seen on a console. Ever. Approaching lifelike. It sold like 5 copies. So I'm like, do people not care as much about graphics and it's about the experience? And if so, a lot of developers I think can be nervous because like, we just have to make a really, really fun, good game.
I mean,
we can't just make it look great anymore and have that be enough.
I mean, I looked to 2 of the more popular, well-received shows in the past 2 years, which is fucking Last of Us and Fallout. There were just really good games with good stories, and they adapted them to fucking TV. They're still really good on TV. So, I don't know. Maybe that's what fucking people want. Is the good storyline. Is the good storyline that has solid graphics and can load fast, and maybe just invest in fucking writers.
Yeah.
Rather than, well, what if we made you punch actually out with your wand thingy or whatever? I'm like, no, guys. Like the 2 TV shows are popular series of games. They're doing really well. People who don't even fucking play the games are watching them. That might introduce them into those games. I'm like, maybe if you just wrote things really well, you're probably going to succeed, and that's where you would go. That's what I hear you guys say. That's what I feel like I'm seeing over and over again. That's what we spent 30 minutes talking about for sports games to invest in. And maybe that's just us, but I just feel like if storyline didn't matter and no one gave a shit, they just wanted real life like shit, everyone would be buying VR desperately hoping it got better, and no one would give a fuck that Last of Us and Fallout were great TV shows. Yeah. But the opposite has happened. The storyline TV shows are really good, and you just spent a bunch of time, and I spent time saying, man, VR just doesn't do it for me. So,
and let me tell you on VR, when I went to throw a grenade, and my hand went through the grenade, and it fell at my feet instead, despite me not doing anything, there was a stutter, and I blew up, and I exploded. And
was that not fun?
Immersion.
Yeah.
Was that not fun? Did you not want to blow yourself up?
That was less good. Yeah.
Because at least when it did dumb shit like that, like in Wii Bowling, if you accidentally,
it was funny. If
the ball input went backwards, everybody in the crowd went, whoa! And then it was like, that's all funny because it's just a fun game.
Oh, by the way, you get to rethrow. That's fine.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead and do it again. Oh, you did it again? You threw it backwards? Oh, whoa.
Sean, your grenade should have blown up and you going, whoa! And then just put the grenade back in your hand.
Well, yeah, and also they can't figure out the motion a lot of the times. There's like 4 different types of movement because it makes everybody sick.
You know what's wild is a crazy complex is like, humans and their brains and the way they move. It's complicated. We're kind of complicated into like creations in the world that took like millions of years to get to the point that we're at for motioning. Maybe you can't replicate that with a fucking computer super well. I don't know.
Or a smart car. Or, hell, there's articles now about how, like, well, at the rate that AI is churning through all the things that have been, like, written and drawn, it's running out of things to learn from already. And it's like, well, yeah, because it only has this certain thing it can do, and humans are much more complicated than that.
It's crazy. It's a crazy thought that we were trying to replicate digital versions of ourselves or all this crap over and over again in our brains. And it's like, well, yeah, it took a lot of time to make art or develop video games or develop fucking technology, cars and all that stuff. It just, maybe you are peeking at it, and never without getting into like, where we are as a humanity and like a beings, we probably don't need to dive into that. But
are you ready for a take that is potentially going to age horribly?
Okay, well, let's get Dave to write this down for you.
Yep. Yeah. Timestamp it, Dave.
I'm not 100% convinced that AI is ever going to get to the point of like independent thought. Like right now, all it is doing is churning out what has already existed.
Yes.
So you could argue it is only ever giving life to ideas that have already been thought.
Yes.
Or already been like collated. And what is the next step? And everybody's nervous, but nobody really like seems to know. And to Chris's point, it's already went through all the stuff it can learn.
Exactly.
So where are we going to stall out, or are we like months away from this new thing and the first AI, legitimately artificial life?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It just replicates stuff. It learns this is whatever a story reads like. So it's just derivative of every single other fucking story. When it's like, tell me a story, AI, and it just rips from this and ripped this and this and this, and it's like. It's not really actual creative thought.
Well, and there's a horrific take from someone that we're not friends with anymore. I thought it was a horrific take of saying, well, what do you expect? It's like a baby. It has to grow up and like mature. And like, were you thinking complicated thoughts when you were a child? It's like, I don't think this is the same.
I don't think
this is the same thing.
I mean, there's a difference between AI and cloning. And you clone someone's, or you create a brain from whateverness, and it's just a computer brain that somehow is like brain tissue or whatever bullshit. Yeah, you have to nurture that thing to grow older, like Jurassic Park, when you have the baby dinosaurs that you recreated.
I'm
that's not how computers work.
Like you're a baby and your mom asks you to say like, say mama, and you regurgitate a Wikipedia entry for like...
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Fucking Debbie Does Dallas.
He was trying to illustrate how little I knew about it, and I was like, I feel like you're illustrating how little you know about it.
I mean, I feel like the infancy stage of that was when the human logged onto the computer and started coding the fucking AI. I think that's when it was a baby.
I think it's in its infancy stage, but it's not an infant.
Yeah,
is like the distinction.
I'm pretty sure the human being that's coding the AI is growing it while it's coding it further. I think that's how it fucking works.
And when I find out the AI has my job tomorrow, I'm going to look back and think like, man, that was a really bad take. But until then...
I do like to get Sean. Sean was like, hello, Sean. I am now your job title.
Your job. Yeah.
Imagine AI trying to replicate some of the dumb shit he says.
Yeah, it's impossible.
I do like the idea of an AI that also trolls Dave. Though.
Right, that bullies him relentlessly.
Dave, here is a search of rowing machines.
I can't get away from this. Yeah. All right.
There you go. A stream of consciousness show that sort of flowed naturally from one thing to another.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hour 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because Dave wasn't here to be like, oh, so anyways, desperately grasping for some concrete topic.
You're so mean. You're so fucking mean.
He was really sad about that for a while. Now I think he can look back on it and laugh, but there was a time where he did not find that funny.
Oh, come on. Come on, Dave.
You're such a bully.
No,
you're such a bully.
He bullies me too. It's a good fun. It's a tete-a-tete.
I feel like he just gets sad and you just get louder when he bullies you.
No, it's quid pro quo. I do this for Dave and then he does it for me.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Quid pro quo.
I scratch your back, you yell at mine.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Peter.
That is the end of this episode. The game show will hopefully be in 2 weeks once everyone is back. I think that's the target. We may even do an unusual thing and have 4 people on the game show. I'm still working that part out, so no promises
Just
there.
teach me how to host it so you can beat them.
Well, that doesn't really help with the number of players thing, but it would just flip 2 people.
I
But
don't care. I guess I have to write all the questions if I do that, though.
uh-huh.
Oh, fuck. That's actually hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of hosting, it's a matter of all the other prep and keeping score while it's happening and running the live stream.
I like the idea of hosting it while you built the questions and then you just get every single one of them right.
I like the idea of you hosting a show and just by like, what was the captain of the 1980?
No, not even
They got
1980.
all the
Who
questions.
was the captain of the fucking Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers from this year?
There you go.
Matthew
I just
Tkachuk.
watch you go.
Chris maybe knows, and that's it.
Is it Matthew Tkachuk or is he an assistant?
I don't fucking know the answer.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
what the fuck?
Well, you might want to for trivia.
Yes.
No,
It's
but
all-
I'm
it's all
telling you how the show's going to work. Like, no, man, I was asking you.
It's all
to tell
arbitrary
me.
trivia.
Cody's like, I don't know if that's right, but I like your conviction,
I like your
so you're gonna get 5 points.
So it's around the horn. I just fucking pick
Kind
based
of.
off of the. I love the idea of doing it around the horn and muting Dave over and over again.
Or it's like the shows that like Doug likes. I don't remember the names of them, but the ones that like Brendan Lee Mulligan and them are on, where it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
all arbitrary and whatever, or whose line, all that stuff.
God, I would love that. We should do that show. That'd be so fun.
I could host that and arbitrarily choose things.
I used to host improv shows. I have thought to myself, what if we tried to do that in this format? And I'm like, Dave would not enjoy that.
I would love an improv show. I would love it. I'm not even saying I'm good at it. I have fun with it.
I need 2 drinks probably before I would enjoy that.
We did our D&D campaign, the Fabula Ultima, and I don't know if Jason likes this, but I think he's great at it. So I will throw him improv stuff all the time. We went to a play, and I was like, "What's the name of the play? What happened? Who are the actors?" He's like, "I don't know," but he came up with something great.
he answered your
He
question though.
It had to do with the moon and the sun and an eclipse at the end, and I was like, "This is exactly what I'm here for."
I feel like doing that. I mean, granted, there's a show people are watching, obviously, but I don't see them, so it's easy. It's way less easy. Like, you can't be embarrassed as much when you don't see the people visually, and you're just dicking around with your friends. It's a lot easier to actually run that improv, not in front of live people and not in front of strangers.
Yeah.
And you can be way more loose because you're just telling Jason, no, answer my fucking question. It's mostly just you BSing back and forth, and I feel like that works way better than the actual idea of what improv getting in front of people when you're nervous.
It's weird though, because Chris actually, I think, has done improv in front of people.
Yeah, a
Mhm.
little.
And I it's all nerve wracking, but I would rather do that. So we have an element of that in our trapeze routine right now, and I have changed what I've said to one of the people every time, and part of that is because I think it's funny, and that's what I tell them. But the real reason is if I start saying the same thing, then it just becomes acting, and that makes me more nervous.
It's a routine because now you're trying to memorize what you were doing before.
Yeah.
No,
Whereas if I just make shit up, it's like, oh, we're just improvising, and who cares? And
BS
that's fun.
on the cuff, whatever pops into your brain, it's funny.
Yep.
And again, to me, you're friends with people, and so you're comfortable with the same jokes and bullshit ideas. So it's easy to spew out whatever weird nonsense is in your head because you're already doing that anyway in a it's just not called improv. It's called bullshitting with each other while you're sitting there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel uncomfortable about it.
I think it's so fun.
Yeah.
So anyways, Chris is trying to close the show, and we went.
Now we hijacked it, and also Dave sucks.
I do like improv.
It's just funny to me because I cut my chops in high school in a chat room doing improv and also hosting game shows. And some of those things ended up becoming useful later on in life, and that's not what I would have expected if you told me that 20 years ago. But I host a game show on here regularly. That's also helped me just host a show or in my job's capacity in general. Like, it is kind of cool to see the sum of all the things that you've had, your experiences, make you who you are.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about as we wrap things up.
Definitely. Reflect on that, America.
The more you know. That's the end of the episode. We'll be back next week. Still stands Dave, who's on vacation. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, grayareas.live or youtube.com/@grayareaslive. We just started a new Trails game for the first time in a couple years. We had the live stream. Come check that out. We'll also have the Super Mario music list coming up in a couple weeks. Check that out. Lots of stuff going on at the channel. We always want you to come along for the ride. Join us in the audience. All that jazz. We will see you next time.